Is batch sewing the secret to faster quilting? So you may be wondering, will I lose a lot of accuracy if I am sitting here just chain piecing? Am I gonna have, very inaccurate blocks? Well, I just made 30 of these units using a chain piecing method, and I only had 2 mistakes. One is I went to iron this one and I realized it just has a metallic silver on it. I put that, this is the right side and it's on the outside. So when I opened it, it's hard to tell, but one side is metallic and one side is not. So this was technically wrong. So I will be seam ripping this one and putting that back together correctly. And this one, what happened here is my thread broke in my machine. So when you open this one up, this part up here is not fully sewn, and that's because my thread in my machine broke. So 2 units to fix, but I have 30 that are complete. So chain piecing can be a very effective way to make progress on a quilt. So setting yourself up to batch sew is very easy. What you're gonna wanna do is have all the components you need right by your sewing machine so you're just ready to go. Here I have multiple stacks of my accent little squares, my background small squares, some of the beginning parts of these units, and my background rectangles. I can just sit here, pick up these pieces. It doesn't really matter which ones go together as long as I have the correct elements. I'm gonna need some that are 2 background squares with a rectangle background, 1 accent square with a background square with a rectangle, and I'm just gonna sit here and batch sew and see how much I can get done before my family wakes up. So you may be wondering, why would you want to batch sew a whole bunch of these different units? If you look at both of these blocks, so this is our star block here, there is a unit here that is a rectangle, a background square, and an accent square. If you pre-make a bunch of these units, later when you go to put your star blocks together, having a whole stack of these ready to go, and it doesn't really matter what the colors are in this corner because you want a variety because each corner is going to be different anyway. On these chain blocks, you have again a similar unit that's on these 4 spots here. And this is again made up of 2 solid or accent colors with a background rectangle. So that's what I've done here is I've made a whole bunch of these, and I'm going to continue to batch sew more of these units. And then I've made a bunch of units for this one, which is an accent square, a background square, and a background rectangle. And so by batch sewing a bunch of these units, later when I go to put the blocks together, it'll be that much faster. So never in my adult life have I ever been able to meditate. If I ever went to yoga or anywhere like that, they would sometimes say like, quiet your mind. And I never could. My mind is always racing with 1,000 ideas and kids and work and everything going on in life. But when I sit down to sew and I get into something like chain piecing, or right now I'm just trimming all these threads apart, this is the only time in my adult life that I ever feel like my mind actually goes quiet. I just get into a rhythm. It's repetitive. I'm thinking about what I'm doing. I'm feeling the fabric. I'm not thinking about dentist appointments. I'm not thinking about laundry. I'm not thinking about work. I just get into a nice rhythm. And for me, quilting is very therapeutic. The repetitive nature, the tactile, just touching the fabrics, seeing the pretty colors, it's just all very soothing. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about it. Another thing that I like is that I can do it when the house is quiet. Maybe everyone else in the house is asleep and I'm the only one up, either early in the morning or late at night. And it's the thing I do to relax. In a world that values busyness and running around and performing, this just feels like a time to slow down. Here you can see I'm just setting up to now put those small square units with a background rectangle to make the little units. So I'm going to move back over to my sewing machine and continue on with chain piecing. And when you're batch sewing like this, you're going to cut all your pieces, you're going to sew, you're going to iron, and you're going to repeat. And you just can get into a really nice rhythm. I think the key to batch sewing is just to have everything close by. Whatever you're about to chain piece or batch sew, just have all your pieces within easy reach so that you can just pick the pieces up, sew them, and keep going. I'm usually just repeating to myself, right sides together, line up your corners. When you're batch sewing like this, because total, I'm going to need 120 of the square units that have 2 small squares and a rectangle. There's going to be endless color combinations. The main thing when I'm picking up 2 pieces of fabric right now is just that I don't have 2 of the same fabric. It could be black and navy, it could be navy and light blue, it could be navy and silver. It doesn't really matter as long as I keep them right sides together and I am using different colors. There is something so satisfying about pulling that chain of blocks off the back of your machine, and just you've accomplished so much, and you have like almost like a little string of like pennants. As I'm cutting them apart, I'm sorting them into the units that have a background square and the units that have 2 accent squares. And this is just because the ones that have only 1 accent fabric is going on the star blocks, and the units that have 2 accent fabrics are going in the chain blocks. Quilting really is a lot of ironing. Sometimes I feel like it's 90% ironing because you're sewing a little bit and then you're ironing for a while. And when I started, I actually didn't have a working iron because if my husband had work clothes, I just took them to the dry cleaner. And then I'm a nurse, I wear scrubs. If I pull my scrubs out of the dryer and hang them up, they don't need to be ironed. And so I don't iron except when I'm quilting. And my son was watching an episode of Home Improvement, and the mom in that show is ironing a shirt for work. And he goes, "Mom, look, she's a quilter like you," because the only time he's seen me iron is when I'm quilting. There are so many fancy irons that you can buy, but I will tell you that mine is from Target and I got it on sale for like $20. And I have been using it since October and it is working great. It has wonderful steam. It has a nice heavy weight. The handle feels good. And this iron cost me, I think, $23 at Target. So do you need a fancy iron to start quilting? No. Do they sell them? Yes. Do I sometimes want a fancy iron? Sometimes. But I'm telling you, my $23 Target iron works wonderfully. One of my other hobbies is puzzles. And I feel like in a lot of ways, quilting is working a puzzle with fabric because you're trying to make an intricate design and you're trying to lay everything out. And to me, puzzles and quilting have a lot in common. And actually, on Reddit, my handle on Reddit is enjoying P's and Q's. And I kind of thought that was fun because minding your P's and Q's is like a word for minding your manners. But for me, enjoying your P's and Q's is puzzles and quilting. Batch sewing or chain piecing is also a really good way to just practice your basics. Right sides together, 1/4 inch seam, lining up your corners. It's just the basics over and over again. And that's honestly, the basics are how you build a quilt. When you learn the basics of sewing, then you can do bigger and bigger projects. My very first project I made was based off a Donna Jordan tutorial, and I made one of her Christmas placemats. And at the time, quilting was not even on my radar. I did not even think that I would ever make a full-size quilt. And now I've made, I believe, 14 quilts. But when I started, I did a placemat first. And it just learning those basic techniques of right sides together, 1/4 inch seam, and practice makes you better. And so start with something small that you're interested in. Placemats and pot holders are great places to start if you want to learn how to quilt, because even for those small projects, you're going to have to just practice cutting, sewing, ironing, quilting. Even for some placemats and pot holders, you also do binding. And so those are great areas to practice on before you work your way up to a full-size quilt.